So we have 2 days left for the project itself. We will have a few more weeks for those of you who are either in classes at the university where the professors want to do a reflection phase, or if you are in the Sculpture Academy track, we will have a few more weeks for the final presentations, report evaluations, reflections, but otherwise we're pretty much done. So here's what's going to happen next. So all of you should have submitted your final reports by now. And if you haven't, the system is still open and you still can submit your files. And so the deadline was a few hours ago. You can still submit your files, and we will spend the next day or so cleaning up the files, making sure that every team submitted their work, and basically going through all of that to make sure that we have all of the work ready for your teachers and professors to evaluate. You also have 2 days, basically until the end of the day tomorrow, to complete the final survey. And this is very important. So the final survey is a little bit bigger than usual. And so it contains questions about your team, so the experience that you had in your team, as well as about your experience in the project as a whole. So two very important reasons for this final big survey. One, we will be evaluating your performance. Everybody will be receiving the Sculpture certificates and recommendation letters. And in the recommendation letters, we would like to comment on your performance. We want to talk about how well or maybe how poorly each student performed, what you did, how you did it, what role you had on the team, the quality of your reports and things like that. And so for that, we need to know how each of your team members performed. And so there will be a little bit more detailed peer evaluations. There will be a little bit more questions about the work that your team has completed. Second, every semester we have done Sculpture for what, about 8 years now. So that's something like 20 semesters. And each time when we are doing the project, we are trying to improve it. We are trying to change the design so that it's more enjoyable for the students, but also more educational for the students. And so we will be asking all kinds of questions that help us understand why some teams do better than others, why some students do better than others, what kind of process leads to the best results. So there will be a bunch of questions in the final survey about your, how active your team was, the leadership structure that you had in your team, the communication system that you had in your team, the coordination structure that you had in your team. So we're trying to understand if some teams, perform better because they had those different solutions. For example, now we are trying to understand how presence of a team leader helps or doesn't help, for example, the team. As you know, at this time, we do not require that the teams have a leader. So it's completely up to you to decide if you want to have an election and select one person as a leader, or if you want to have some sort of other team structure. Maybe you have multiple leaders. Maybe you don't have a formal leader, but maybe you just kind of feel that one person does all the coordination. Or maybe you specifically decided not to have any leader at all whatsoever. So we are trying to understand how those choices affect team dynamics, so that if one of the choices leads to a better result, maybe we have to make or should make it mandatory next semester. So there will be a lot of questions about things that allow us to understand how teams are performing, why some teams are performing better than others, so that we can use that knowledge in the training next semester, but possibly also in the design of the project itself. And finally, there will be a few questions about the project itself. What went well from the administrative point of view, maybe what didn't work, what we can do better. So we are still trying to decide and design the project. And so you as participants obviously have the best understanding of what makes you sort of happy and makes you learn more, and what perhaps is not helping. And so unless you tell us, we may not know. And if you tell us, we will know what is good and should be kept next semester, and what is maybe not performing or doing or working well, and maybe we should change next semester. So that survey is due tomorrow, and I strongly encourage you to complete it as I said, it's very important both for us to evaluate you, but also for us to know how future teams should be structured to do the best job, but also how the project itself should be designed so that it's most enjoyable and most educational, developmental, useful for the future participants in the project. Now, the reports that you or were due yesterday, and I assume, I hope all of you have submitted your work. As I said, I will keep the system open for a few more days, well, 1-2 days. So if you need to finish up something, if you need to submit it, it's okay. It's still open. It will still allow you to submit your work. Some of the challenges that we see with the submissions are some students would submit multiple files, and so it takes us some time to figure out which one is the correct one. Some teams would not properly label their submissions. So there is a file, but it doesn't say what the team number is or who the team member is. It takes us some time to figure that out. But usually within a day or two, we have a nice, neat list of all of the reports. Then what we will do is we will send the reports to the professors. And let me share with you here what it looks like so that you have sort of in the spirit of full disclosure. So I'll show you what the reports look like in the early track. So we already have them submitted, and final reports. So these are the reports that the teams in the early track submitted. And then so they go out to all of the professors. And each of these reports will be evaluated by 5, 6, up to 7 professors evaluated independently. We'll also send them to the companies, to the clients, but also to the professors. And the professors do most of the evaluation. The reason for that is that we have many professors and few clients. And so some of the client companies will receive 200, 300 reports, and obviously they cannot read all of them. So instructors have to help here. And so the instructors will receive the reports from the teams whose students were members of those teams. So if I have, let's say, 25 students, that means that my 25 students are in 25 different teams, and that means those are the 25 teams whose reports I as an instructor have to evaluate. And so the instructors are using this evaluation matrix where they would see the complete list of teams, and they would, let's say, for example, I need to evaluate report number 8. I would put my name here, and then I would, say what company this report was written for, how many pages it had, and then on a 7-point scale, I will evaluate each aspect of the report. Executive summary, market analysis, and so on and so on and so on. And then the professors need some comments. And so the final product looks something like this. Let me show you here. So, so the instructors, when they send the report evaluations, we get them as Excel files. And then we put them all in a consolidated database. And this database looks like this. So the instructors would have, let's say, for example, team number 185 was evaluated by several professors here. So, for example, by Tim Muth, and these are the evaluations, then by another professor, and so everything then eventually comes to this database. And as you see, some of the reports have already been evaluated by 1, 2, or even 3 professors. And then when we are fully done, each report will have been evaluated by 5 or 6 different professors. And we use color coding here to see which ones are better, so we can see that right away. Like, for example, you can see that report from team 187 has very high evaluations, all 6s and 7s. And so it seems like this will be a very, high grade. And others may have somewhat lower evaluations, so we have a bunch of here. So, for example, team number 68 has relatively low evaluations. And so this allows us to get an idea as to what team does better and what team perhaps is, didn't write a very good report. But in any case, we will review all of those reports carefully, evaluate them independently by multiple instructors, send them to the clients and get their feedback. And in the end, we will select about 10 reports for each company that are best rated by both the clients and by the professors. Then we will assemble a committee of both clients, professors, coaches, who will review those best reports. So there will be, as I said, about 10 or so best reports for each company. And since we have a total of 15 companies, that will be about 150 reports. And so the selection committee will review them one more time, very carefully, each of those reports. And from each of those piles, each of those collections, they will select one, possibly two really best reports in each category, and maybe even one or two best overall. And so that's when we will be ready to announce the winners. And as I said, it's always impossible, it's never been possible to select one single team out of 1,000 teams that is definitely the best one. The reason for that is, as I said, there will be many teams that will actually have done a great job. And so it would be arguably impossible to say that this one is definitely better than this one. We'll see, maybe it will happen this time. But most of the times we have several teams out of 1,000 that have been considered or selected, elected as the best teams. And so those teams will receive the best team awards. So, but basically that's where we stand with the reports. And so it will probably be 2, maybe 3 more weeks before we are ready to announce the winners. So it takes some time to evaluate those reports. And just like some of your team members could have been a little late with their part of the work, we will see the same problem with the professors. So there will be some professors who will be done with their evaluations early on and on deadline. In fact, the deadline is May 10th, so 2 weeks from now, a little bit less. But there will be also professors who will be late. And so by the time everybody will be done, it will be more like May 15, plus or minus a few days. Also around that time, we will send each one of you your certificate so that you can use it in your package when you apply for jobs or scholarships, but also a more detailed recommendation letter. So it will contain probably about 4 or 5 pages, and it will comment on your performance in great detail. So what you did, what you learned in the process, what skills you acquired, why it's important for you, then a little bit, some comments on your performance as a team member, a little comments on your performance when it comes to the quality of the report that your team wrote. And then in the end, obviously, a recommendation. So if you did a great job as a team member, the letter will say, and I can confidently recommend this person for projects where teamwork and collaboration is necessary. Or if you wrote a good report, the letter will say, I can confidently recommend this person for projects where creative thinking, problem solving, challenge solving is necessary. And so in the end, you will have your recommendation, again, if you will be applying for jobs or maybe applying for some scholarships or schools, so you will be able to show this as a proof of your knowledge, skills, experience, and abilities. Most students complete the project well and receive very positive reviews and recommendations. But as always, there will be probably a few students who will not have done a good job. So there will be a few students who will maybe not submit the final report or who have been receiving consistently low peer evaluations. Obviously, for those students, we will not be able to give strong recommendations. And so their letters may say, I cannot recommend this person for this and that. So we'll see. Hopefully, you will not be one of them. But again, we are honest in our evaluation, and if it's a good job, obviously students receive high performance evaluations, but if they haven't done a good job, it's a negative letter of recommendation. We will also include in this final package your performance review for yourself, so you know how you did compared to the rest of the class, and it will be a little bit more quantitative, more numbers, so that you know how you did. And then if everything goes fine, we will also try to include your cultural intelligence assessment report. So you took all those tests on cultural intelligence, and so we will try to write each one of you a cultural intelligence report, so that again, first and foremost, you can learn from it, you can use it for your own development, but also if you will be applying for jobs or positions where you need to show cultural intelligence and your test results are good, you can bring that assessment document to your employer or maybe a selection committee as a proof that, among other things, you also score very high on cultural intelligence compared to thousands of other people who took this test. So again, if everything goes fine, you should be getting those probably in the 3rd week of May. Again, it takes time to prepare those documents, but once ready, we will send them to you. We used to offer an option to order hard copies of those documents, so paper copies. We don't do that anymore. And the reason for this is it's very expensive and very slow. So we will send you high resolution print ready documents that you can print on your printer, or if you want, for example, the certificate printed on glossy, nice paper, you can just go to a local print shop and like for 50 cents, you can print it in color on, thick, nice looking paper. And so it will cost you literally like 50 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents, depending on your location, and you can have it done right there. If we send it, we used to offer an option where people place an order and we print it here locally at a print shop and then mail it to you. But just the mailing can cost $30, $40 depending on where you live, so it's a bigger package. And so not only it will cost you a lot of money unnecessary, but also it will take more time, and sometimes it's lost in mail. So it makes no sense to print it in the United States and ship it around the world. So now we just simply send you a very high resolution print ready documents, and you can just print it locally. If you lose the hard copy, you can always print another one. So this way it's definitely much more reliable, much better, and everybody wins. So not to mention, again, in a few years, we tried to send them to everybody who participated. Not only did we spend thousands of dollars on shipping and printing, but it's also a lot of work. I mean, it's, you have thousands of people just packaging this, making sure that all addresses match, checking with everyone, the mailing address. It's just too much hassle. We don't really have the resources. It takes like 2 weeks just to put it in the envelopes and send it out. Obviously, we can do it, and there is really no need. It's cheaper, faster, more reliable to do it locally. So that's where we stand with that. Finally, the symposium. So we have finalized the list of participants. There are still a couple of students left who still need to register, pay the registration fee, and who have been promised a spot on the list, but the registration has been not finalized. I think we have 2 students like that left, or 3. But otherwise, we have selected 150 students. There will be also some professors. There will be a few companies that will be also flying in to join us. And there will be 21 ambassadors and coaches who will be helping with the event. And so we will probably be sending out today the final confirmations to those who are on the list, and then sort of explanations and letters that say, we are sorry, you're not on the list, to those who applied, but who were not selected. We have received initially altogether about 700 applications for 150 spots. Obviously, some of those who applied, when we selected the best ones and said, you can now proceed with the registration, we had a few students who didn't proceed with the registration, change of plans, some other reasons. So in the end, it seems like it was about 500 really interested applicants. And then of those, we selected 150. We decided to have a couple of kids teams. So teams comprised of pre-college teams. So we'll see how that goes. We had 2 of those teams, I believe, in Italy last year. They did pretty well, so we decided to give it another try this time. So we will see how it goes. And and everybody else is basically university students. We will be finalizing, as I said, we sort of have the final list, but still need to go through all of the names. And so this weekend we will have the final list, and then we will proceed with forming the teams so that students can start working with their teams virtually. And then obviously ones that can't in Canada, they will work face-to-face. So the preparations are going very well to that event. We have several companies that will be hosting the event. Obviously the University of Calgary, but we will also have a few companies that will partner with us. We will visit them. We will learn how their operations are going, how their business model works, meet with the management, meet with the employees. So sort of, see how those things go. But that's basically where we stand. Now, do you have any questions? If you do, you can raise your hand. I can add you here, or you can just type the questions. But other than that, I don't think there is really anything else to cover today. So the reports are done. The surveys are due tomorrow. We will, again, with the Academy students, have a few more weeks when you will present your work, when you will write your reflection papers. And so we will have some final kind of roundtable meeting where we will share experiences, what you learned, how things went. But that will be basically in the next few weeks. Those of you who are university students, we don't do that mandatory, but some of the professors organize those kinds of sessions. And so again, that would be between you and your professor. Any questions, guys? Any questions, any comments? Well, thank you so much again for being here then. I will share this recording with those students who couldn't attend live. And I guess we will communicate. If you are in the X-Culture Academy track, we will communicate with you in the coming days. All right? So no questions? All right. Well then, yeah, we'll talk to you soon.